Vasistha has been describing his spiritual practice. And spiritual practice is a paradoxical thing. In spiritual practice, you can take an object, a book for example, and consider this: what is here? Here there is a book. But there's something else, isn't there? There's awareness of the book. There's awareness of the book. If there's not awareness of the book, how can you say, here is a book? In spiritual practice, you can say, no, there's only a book here. Or you can say, but what about this awareness? And when you start looking into the awareness, you develop greater and greater appreciation of what this awareness is about, until you might say there is only awareness, if you're going to say anything at all. So in Vasistha's practice, he saw Rudra, the primordial being, and Rudra's shadow, Kalaratri, the dance of creation and dissolution. So there are these two things, but really, once you start looking into it and appreciating what's going on here, there's only the one thing, if we can even talk about it. And that's Brahman, of course. Vasistha continued, I shall now tell you, O Ram, how Lord Rudra, who was standing in the cosmic space with an apparent form, cast it off and attained total tranquility. Rudra, remember, appeared at the end of cosmic dissolution, which means we're at the nub of spiritual practice, which is what I just described. So we want to cast off all apparent form and get to the reality. That Rudra stood observing the division in consciousness known as the creation. In a moment he swallowed the division, as it were. It's a bit like a shadow coming back into the body. If you shine a light on somebody, you see the shadow moving, and you can shine the light in such a way that the shadow disappears and apparently gets swallowed into the body again. The division gets swallowed. Then Rudra stood alone, one with space, as if he himself were space. In a few minutes he became as light as cloud, and his size was fast shrinking, because he can't even have form. Once creation has been dissolved, there can't be any form, so Rudra, who's supposed to be the absolute, or at least a conceptual expression of the absolute, to get beyond that conception of the absolute, the form has to disappear. I saw through my own divine vision that he had become smaller than an atom. In a moment he had become invisible. He had become supreme peace. He had become one with the absolute Brahman, or pure consciousness. So in a way, Rudra is also like a shadow, a conceptual shadow, a shadow formed by our concepts. When we start talking about these things, we automatically create concepts and notions about them, which take us away from them. So we have to reverse that trend. We have to undermine our notions and concepts and come back to the reality that is you, right here, right now. This is the reality. Thus, O Ram, I saw within that rock the creation, sustenance, and the dissolution of the universe. I was amazed at all this illusory perception. So we've been having the story of the universe which exists within a rock. Back in chapter 45 of section 6.1, we had the story of the wood apple, and in chapter 46 the story of the rock. And within each of these objects there was the whole universe. The whole universe arose. And I think the point being that In the same way that a dream is homogeneous, a fruit is homogeneous, and a rock is homogeneous. We think of it as one thing, even though there are lots of different aspects to it. So it doesn't actually matter what you pick up and what you contemplate. You can go through this process of awareness of the object, and then just awareness, just consciousness, just the attention resting in itself. It's the attention that what is meant by awareness. The word awareness maybe seems quite nebulous, but the word attention, you're attending to this video right now, or you might be attending to some thoughts about the video. Examine that attention. Look at what is going on, and then look at what is looking at what is going on. What Vasistha is seeing whenever he looks at something is the whole process of creation and dissolution. The creation is the involvement with notions, the dissolution is freeing oneself from these notions, and then there's the realization and the appreciation of that awareness within which all that is happening. Again, I looked at the rock and I saw all sorts of creations and creatures in it, like the limbs of Kalaratri. And this is the creation coming up again, the notions arising once again. All this is seen only with the eyes of awakened intelligence, or by the divine eye which sees everything everywhere at all times as everything is. This is the realization of the uncoloured attention. If one sees the rock with the physical eyes as if it lies at a distance, only the rock is seen, but no creation, etc. It's just a rock. After all this, I turned my inner eye to another part of the same rock. Once again I saw a whole creation come into being and all the rest of it. In every part of that rock I saw a whole creation. Even so, I saw innumerable creations in the very many rocks that I found on that hill. So Vasistha, when he looks at a rock, he is seeing the creation, the dissolution, and the absolute Brahman, and realizing the absolute Brahman. This is his spiritual practice. In some of these creations, the Brahma had just begun his work of creation. In others, the gods were springing from the mind of the Creator. Some were populated by human beings, in some there were no gods, and in some no demons. In some the Satya Yuga reigned, and in others the Kali Yuga. The Satya Yuga is the age of truth, and the Kali Yuga is the dark age, which we're supposed to be living in now. In some the people had conquered old age and death. In some the people were all enlightened because they encountered no obstruction to their righteousness. Thus I saw the state of the universe in the past, present and future. In some I saw dense darkness and ignorance. In some I saw Rama fighting Ravana, and in some Ravana abducting Sita. Some were ruled by the gods and some by demons. So these are all the notions, this froth of notions, which is part of the fabric of consciousness.